Welcome to this bulletin of business news. We want to begin with this story. The UK government indicating its preparedness to help the new administration stabilize the economy. The new administration has made stabilizing the economy and improving the business environment a major priority as Nana Addo begins work today. Now, visiting UK Prime Minister of Trade, Ghanaian-born MP for Windsor, Adam Efriye, tells Joy Business the UK is convinced with government's resolve to make the private sector the focus of the administration.
There really is an opportunity for Ghana to thrive and to fly and to be one of the countries that becomes the, let's say, the success story of Africa.
In terms of fostering that good environment, enabling environment for firms here in Ghana, what areas should we be looking at in terms of this new administration to ensure that we get it right to improve the business environment? Because when you engage a lot of firms here in Ghana, that's one of their topmost priority, that the environment has to be improved so they can grow their enterprises.
Well, the first experience that any overseas company or investor will have with Ghana is as they try to bring goods through customs. So I think it's really important that customs operate efficiently, effectively, and without the bribery and corruption that we have seen in the past. And I think that with a new administration, this is a new opportunity to put things right pretty quickly in that area. And I think the second area is that when it comes to the issuing of licenses and the registration of land, again, it should be a very high priority that these things can be managed effectively and efficiently so that businesses, when they first show up in Ghana, when they first begin to invest, feel confident that, they can transact their business without too much trouble and too much difficulty. I say this, don't be worried. This is a great opportunity for Ghana because in the United Kingdom now we have new departments looking overseas for opportunities, and Ghana, with the new administration and with some continued business reform, can be right at the top of the list of those countries with which we can transact business. So with Brexit, yes, there'll be a lot of resource focused on Brexit, but even more resource will be focused on forging those free trade relationships, those international relationships with countries like Ghana. So really, I would say that Brexit is a great opportunity for Ghana-UK relations, particularly in the areas of trade and diplomacy. It's an opportunity, it's not a threat.
What about inflows in terms of support? Because there are fears that also there'll be some serious cuts in inflows for more of a developing country like Ghana.
Yeah, well, look, the historic relationship has been very good, and we have several funds and support mechanisms to enable business in Ghana, both from DFID, our Department for International Development, from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and we have this high-level prosperity fund, which is really attuned to the new environment in Ghana. If there's going to be business reform, then in Britain we are in a position where we can help to support those reforms so that businesses can transact freely and in a positive way within Ghana.
All right, so that was Ghanaian-born MP for Windsor and UK Prime Minister's trade envoy, Adam Efriye, speaking there to my colleague, George Riafe. Moving on. Private businesses have welcomed the new government's promise to empower the private sector to drive the country's economic growth and create jobs. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo made the promise during his inauguration ceremony over the weekend.
In his inaugural speech, President Akufo-Addo impressed on private businesses the need to revive the investment drive in the economy, urging them to drive the country's economic growth and create jobs.
We will stimulate the creative juices of innovators. We'll bring to life the adventurer in you. It is time to imagine and to dream again. Time to try that business idea again. We will reduce taxes to recover the momentum of our economy. The doors of Ghana are open again. The shutters are up again. There could not be a better opportunity to make in Ghana and to make it in Ghana.
The umbrella body for private businesses, the Private Enterprise Federation, says they would reposition to harness the expected opportunities. The Chief Executive, Nana Osei-Bonsu, has been speaking to Joy Business.
We have to grow the competencies and the capacities to be able to take advantage of the opportunities it's going to create for us. We don't want to let him down and let ourselves down by not being able to perform. So private sector now has to sit down and sit up and look within themselves. What can we do? You see, job creation is not an art where anybody says an investment to go and create jobs. Businesses established to make money. And when they get more money and they're expanding and growing, they create jobs and wealth. So it's very important that all the rules and regulations and everything else, the enablers, what they call, are in line to allow private sector to become profitable. Then we'll be able to grow and able to bring other people and create the jobs and wealth.
The president also emphasized his government's commitment to revamp the public sector by ensuring integrity and accountability in public service. But what strategy could yield the desired results? Nana Osei Bonsu again.
Knowing what we know about the president, I think he's going to drive his people to be more efficient than what we've known over the years. But one of the areas that I think we can explore is, do they come with terms of reference? What's the deliverables expected of them? So if it's a blanket go as a minister and do whatever you want in the ministry, then how do you measure performance? So those are areas that maybe it will take time to develop the baseline for the terms of reference for ministers and public service servants or public service deliverers to be able to hold them accountable. He says they got to be held accountable. You're going to hold somebody accountable, then it got to be lines that are drawn, understood by both parties that I'm responsible for A, B, C, D. It can be done, I can evolve as we operate and go forward. So that can be done in due course.
So could the new government really turn around the fortunes of the economy, especially to the benefit of private businesses as expected? Certainly, only time will tell.
And we'll stick with the expectations from the business community following the inauguration of Ghana's President Akufo-Addo. Now, the chief executive of Standard Chartered Bank, Kweku Bedu-Addo, has added his voice to calls for the newly sworn-in government to be cautious in implementation of its promise to cut taxes. The governing party, in its 2016 manifesto, promised to remove import duties on raw materials and production equipment while slashing corporate taxes from 25 to 20%. President Akufo-Addo, in his inaugural speech, reiterated his government will reduce taxes to cover the momentum of the economy. But speaking with Joy Business, Mr. Bedu-Addo said government would need to explore other options of raising revenues.
We need to continue to see fiscal discipline. We've gone through almost 3 years of fiscal consolidation. We are under an IMF program. I think that as Ghanaians, we have to hold ourselves to high standards. I personally don't think that we need an IMF to tell us to live within our means. So I would expect that going forward, after all that we've been through as a country, we would learn, and our economic managers would also ensure that fiscal discipline becomes the standard, because once there's fiscal discipline, everything else will fall in line. And interest rates will start to go down, investment will start to go up, the economy will grow. Fiscal discipline obviously implies that the tax administration will also be more efficient whilst expenditure is controlled. When you have all these factors aligned, then you get on a more benign, virtuous cycle of growth and investment. But if the fiscal dominates everything and takes everything out of equilibrium, then we don't achieve what we all want to achieve.
But is your optimism that high that this will be done?
I think that I would say that all the stakeholders have learned lessons, what to do and what not to do. I think that's how I'll choose to look at it. I think given what we've been through, we all know what not to do. Hopefully, we all know what not to do. And we'll learn from that experience and make sure that going forward, we take the country down the path guided by what to do. When we had our 120th anniversary public lecture, we had distinguished personalities from the past, Mr. Osafo Mafu, former finance minister, Dr. Kwesi Botwe, former finance minister, and Mr. Alex Ashiago, former governor of Bank of Ghana. And it was interesting these are people who managed the country, the economy at various stages in the last 40 years. And hearing their perspective, the sad truth that came out at the end of the public lecture was that we've gone around in one big circle. The same problems that existed in the 70s, 80s, 90s still persist. And so does that mean that we didn't learn our lessons? And so I think I would still say that I hope that we've all learned what not to do. And let's move forward with those lessons in mind.
As President Nana Akufo-Addo starts work, key industry players are pressing on the NPP administration to create an enabling environment for Ghana's private sector within his first 100 days in office. Now, the president of the Ghana Union Traders Association, GUTA, Dr. Ofori Ameyao, in an interview with Joy Business, urged President Akufo-Addo to help ease the cost of doing business in Ghana within his first 100 days in office. Charles Aite has more.
The key promises President Nana Akufo-Addo made during the campaign period is to stimulate growth in Ghana's private sector through creating an enabling environment for local businesses to thrive. President of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Barima Dr. Ofori Ameyao I, says the only way the president can stimulate the private sector is to quicken measures to cut down on utility tariffs and levies on import duties.
Without a very good business environment, the private sector cannot operate to the admiration of themselves and the country as a whole, because if the private sector improves, it's the country which benefits at the end of the day, because the country may be able to get his or her taxes all right. When you talk about the macroeconomic indicators, you talk about the interest rate. How can one businessman break even if we have an interest rate of 33 to 35%? It's impossible. Even if you're not lucky and then you will fall into the hands of the macro finance companies, then you are dead. Because if you're talking about 5% a month, cumulatively you're talking about 60%. You're talking about 6%, cumulatively you're talking about 72%. When you talk about 7% a month, cumulatively you're talking about 84% per annum. How can a businessman, operate in such an environment to break even? Living there, you talk about the major issue of the exchange rate. Sometimes I have been very consistent that when we talk about exchange rate and government comes out to say that, oh, we have been able to stabilize the currency, what kind of stabilization are they talking about? Because the expectation of the private sector is not about you stabilizing at 4 cedis. Our expectation could have been at least 2 cedis or 2.50.
The Ghana Printers and Paper Converters Association fears massive layoffs this year should President Akufo-Addo neglect the pressing issues of power fluctuations and unfair tax systems. So far, expectations remain high on how best the new NPP administration will turn around Ghana's local private sector. For Joy Business, Charles Aite reporting.
You're watching Business Live. Now, moving on, the National Association of Nigeria Travel Agencies, NANTA, has urged the federal government to allow foreign carriers from the option of flying their Abuja-bound passengers to Lagos instead of Kaduna, which has been suggested as an alternative to Abuja Airport while it undergoes renovations. Now, NANTA says allowing foreign airlines to fly their Abuja-bound passengers to Lagos would be the best option, since some of the foreign airlines have expressed reservations about the Kaduna airport. I want to believe that we have on Skype the Nigerian journalist Olujimi Aina. Good evening to you. First of all, just for the benefit of our viewers, tell us how busy and how important the Abuja airport is.
Yes, good evening. Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly well. I was asking you to tell us how important and how busy the Abuja airport is.
Hello. I can barely hear you. Can you hear me?
Looks like we are having some difficulty. I'm going to try one more time and speak to our Nigerian journalist joining us on the situation there in Abuja concerning the temporary closure of the Abuja airport. If you can hear me, I was asking you to tell us how important and how busy the Abuja airport is.
Hello.
All right, obviously we're having challenges there speaking with Olujimi Aina there, but we'll try and do so subsequently maybe during this bulletin. You're watching Business Live. Now let's turn to cocoa because prices continue to fall on the international market. The drop is said to be as a result of high expectations of big harvest this crop season, especially from Ghana and Ivory Coast, which remain dominant players. Here's more. Cocoa markets have been big losers in 2016, and analysts project the decline would most likely continue. The prospects of increased production weaken prices on the global markets. Analysts are now forecasting a surplus this crop season after a deficit in the 2015-2016 crop season. The relatively mild Harmattan, they say, could boost crops and help Ghana and Ivory Coast reach production targets. Ghana's Cocoa Board is targeting an annual cocoa output of 1 million tons from the current 800,000 tons. Ivory Coast is also expected to produce 1.82 million tons. The two countries produce about 60% of the world's cocoa. Cocoa is currently selling at about $2,200 a ton on the international market. Other stories tonight, an economist, Professor Felix Asante, tells Joy Business despite predictions by the IMF and World Bank of a strong economic growth this year, there are still some real tough times ahead.
I mean, I'm just even hoping that January salaries will even be paid on time because, you see, if you follow the issues of the Article 71 office holders payments and other things, and if all these payments are going to be made, then a huge amount of resources are going to go out of government coffers. And that is going to be a big challenge for the incoming government.
And how does he get around that, some would say? Because the argument was that, listen, these monies have been budgeted for on an annual basis. Government should be doing almost like 40 million Ghana cedis. The whole budget for compensation for workers is not more than 10 billion Ghana cedis. This is something that the economy can absorb. This is something that the budget can absorb. So it's more of much ado about nothing. That is what is out there.
I mean, that is what the budget can absorb. But were we able to achieve those revenue targets that we are saying that the budget will be able to absorb? Those are the questions that we should be asking. I mean, we need to mobilize resources, okay? And one would think the easiest is to increase tax, but I'm hoping that we don't come with new tax rules or regulations. We should be innovative and find ways of raising revenue. And if that will work, I think the private sector and the business should be used as the engine to propel this. I mean, looking at the business environment, the number of days to set up a business and all that. I mean, when you look at the 2017 doing business ranking, I mean, Ghana is not, we've been overtaken by Mauritius, Rwanda, Kenya, South Africa. Yes. And if we want the economy to, we need to improve upon the business environment.
And we want to take you back to our earlier story about the temporary closure of the Nigerian Abuja airport, and the controversy that has started between the federal government and the airlines over there. Joining us again, Nigerian journalist Olujimi Aina. Thanks for your time. I believe you can hear me now. I was asking you how important and how busy the Abuja airport is.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on your show. Yes, the Abuja airport is very important because, it's one of the major hubs in Nigeria ever since it became the capital. Just like Lagos State, the Nnamdi Azikiwe airport is very important. You can see regular visitors every day, both foreign and domestic. And, that's why right now the controversy surrounding why the government is shutting it down come March the 8th. up to February has really ignited a lot of controversy concerning the shutdown. The airlines are really angry about it. Just 2 days ago, they had a meeting with the State Minister for Aviation, talking about Sirika and Senator Sirika, and they made it known to him that they are really upset about what's going on. According to them, they said that, for instance, the Gatwick Airport in England and London had a repair some time ago, but wasn't shut down. And they're looking at the way that the government can finding a way where it could be partially shut down and they could continue their operations.
Okay, I mean, trying to renovate an airport to me sounds like a very good idea. Why are the airlines kicking against it, and how far have the deliberations come?
Your question again, I didn't hear that.
I was saying that, I mean, renovating the airport and closing it for that matter sounds to me a pretty good idea. So I'm just wondering why the airlines would want to kick against it. And while you're at it, tell us how far the deliberations have come.
Okay, well, the airlines are kicking against it because the Kaduna Airport has been earmarked by the government as an alternative. And most of them are saying, it's a long way from Kaduna to Abuja. One, because of the distance, and again, because of the security issues we're having, especially if you guys are aware of it. There's Kaduna killings, the southern Kaduna killings going on, and of course, even though the government have been saying they have defeated Boko Haram, but people are still scared about taking such journeys. Especially foreigners, they're really worried about it. And of course, the government has also said nearby airports, the one in Niger State, Yakubu Gowon Airport in Jos, and the Ilorin Airport in Kwara State are not adequate enough, to be able to do the job that they are able to take the capacity that, they would like it to actually carry. And that's why they really agree, talking about, especially international airlines, really agree with it. Repairing the airport is not a bad idea, and just as the State Minister for Aviation has said, palliative efforts are not the best one, rather, because they have done that in the past and found out that, it didn't solve the problem. So
all right.
Okay.
All right. Aina Olujimi, thanks very much for your time. I would have loved to have a conversation with you about the impact on businesses there, but we'll save that conversation for another day. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll have the interview of the day. Welcome back to the program. Time now for the interview of the day, and the Chief Executive of the Private Enterprise Federation, Nana Osei-Bonsu, has been commenting on President Akufo-Addo's resolve to revamp the integrity of the public sector. Watch this interview.
As we had been going from the previous eras, we're looking to an area where lawlessness will be abated, because it looks like the rules of the game are not being adhered to, either from the public service or public servants, private sector, civil society, and everything. So for Nana to come on and say, we have to do things on the basis of integrity. What we want to see is, this is a window into his vision as to how he's going to drive the development of the nation. But the key point is that the lieutenants who will be empowered to administer these kind of activities and drive his vision, or to achieve his vision, should also be people with integrity and competencies that will enable them to do, and with the utmost professionalism, to stand up the plate and say, hey, this is wrong, and we say it's wrong, and there are no two ways we're going to do it right.
So speaking of public sector, from the statement, is it fair to conclude, therefore, that the sector actually lacks integrity? And
I wouldn't make a blanket statement that the sector lacks integrity. There are people in there who lack integrity. There are others who do practice by the rules of the game and do the right things.
But generally?
Generally, service provision at that level had not been efficient. So whether that is a cause for lack of integrity or absence of competencies, you cannot, ascribe that to which source is the real reason for. But one thing that the president said is that the public sector should be accorded the dignity. Okay, if we want and expect efficient application of the processes and procedures.
And that's our show tonight. My name is Daryl Carr. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Thanks for watching.